If you had any dignity, you wouldn't be sitting here stinking up the street. Lauren Brooks didn't even break stride. She pulled a miniature bottle of hot sauce from her designer handbag, the one she used to spice up her lunch, and poured it all over the homeless man's outstretched hands. The red liquid soaked his skin, and the man winced in silence as it began to burn. His palms trembled from the sting, but he said nothing, not even when onlookers gasped, not when a security guard began walking toward them, not even when Lauren turned to him with one final, heartless remark. Maybe this will teach you to stop wasting everyone's time and do something useful with your life. The man looked up at her, quiet, sad, strangely composed, and in the gentlest voice imaginable, he simply said, "Kindness costs nothing." Lauren didn't look back. She had 6 minutes to get to the elevator and 13 to prepare for the biggest meeting of her career. If real stories of justice and second chances speak to you, don't forget to subscribe, because what happened next changed everything. New York City, Monday morning. Lauren Brooks was always early. At just 29, she had worked her way from administrative assistant to senior account strategist at IronVale Group, one of Manhattan's top real estate tech firms. She had the wardrobe, the apartment in Midtown East, and the ruthless drive her bosses loved. She also had a morning routine that never changed. 7:45 a.m. oat latte from the cafe on 41st 3 blocks walking distance to the steel glass building ID badge scanned by 8:00 a.m. sharp. But for the last 6 weeks, one thing had ruined that perfect morning ritual. A man, dirty slouched on a mat, sitting directly outside her office tower entrance. He wasn't loud. He didn't shout. He didn't even beg. He just sat there, watching. A cardboard sign by his knee read, "Anything helps. God bless." To Lauren, he was more than an inconvenience. He was a blemish on the company's brand image. She'd brought it up twice to building security. "Can't you relocate him or something?" she had snapped. "He's scaring clients." But he didn't go away. And this morning of all mornings, he dared to speak. "Excuse me, miss," he said as she passed. Voice calm, eyes almost apologetic. "If you have anything to spare." She spun around. Her hand dove into her tote, pulled out the hot sauce bottle, and before anyone could stop her, she squeezed the full stream across his hands. It sizzled on his cracked skin, and yet he didn't scream. He looked at her with the kind of patience that stung more than the sauce. "Kindness costs nothing," he said. Lauren clenched her jaw. "Spare me the street corner sermons," she muttered. Then she turned on her heels and walked through the revolving doors, leaving the man behind, burning, but quiet. Upstairs, the mood couldn't have been more different. The 37th floor buzzed with executives preparing for the launch of IronVale's $180 million expansion project. The company was going global, and today's pitch would decide who would lead the brand development for the entire European market. 3 candidates, 1 promotion, 1 shot at the big leagues. And Lauren had done everything right. Every stat, every slide, every scenario, the pitch was flawless. And when she entered the conference room, hair smooth, blazer, sharp voice, steady, not a hint of the sidewalk chaos followed her in. She delivered her presentation with mechanical precision. By the time she walked back to her desk, the murmurs had already started. Lauren crushed it. She's the front runner, no question. But that confidence began to tremble when her office phone rang at 3:42 p.m. "This is Lauren," she answered. A pause, then a voice. "Miss Brooks, Mr. Julian Sterling would like to see you in his office." Her stomach dropped. Julian Sterling, CEO of IronVale. The man whose name was whispered like a legend. The kind of billionaire who didn't request things, he simply made them happen. Lauren stood quickly. Her mind raced. Did he watch my pitch? Is he offering something bigger? As she rode the executive elevator up to the penthouse level, something she'd never done before, she reminded herself to breathe. She smoothed her skirt, checked her reflection, practiced a smile that said, "I belong here." The doors opened, and her heart stopped, because sitting at the long marble conference table in a crisp navy suit was the same man from the street. No mat, no sign, no grime, just a soft smile, and those same eyes. Julian Sterling stood from behind his desk. Lauren, he said smoothly, I'd like you to meet my father, Henry Sterling. He's been helping me assess future leaders for IronVale by observing how they treat people they believe are beneath them. Lauren's knees went weak. Henry folded his hands, still slightly red from the hot sauce she'd poured just hours ago. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. The kind of disappointment that couldn't be erased with words, only with truth. And Lauren, she had none. Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. She stood frozen near the entrance of the most powerful room in the building, her confidence cracking under the weight of realization. Her brain screamed for a script, for a defense, for anything. But all she could hear was the echo of that soft voice from earlier that morning. Kindness costs nothing. Please, Julian Sterling gestured toward the seat across from his father. Have a seat. The leather chair beneath her felt more like a trap door than a cushion. Lauren lowered herself slowly, trying to keep her breath steady. Mr. Sterling the Elder looked exactly like the man she dismissed hours ago, but everything about his posture now radiated quiet authority. Clean-shaven, composed eyes, clear and knowing. The disguise had fallen away, but the calm dignity remained. I imagine you're wondering what this is about, Julian said, settling back in his chair, and you'll get your answer. But first, my father has a few things to say. Lauren's eyes darted between them. She knew she should speak, apologize, explain something, but her tongue felt useless, tied by the weight of the moment. Henry Sterling leaned forward slightly. His voice was as gentle as it had been outside on the street, but now it carried a quiet gravity. For 15 years, he began, I've spent 1 week each quarter in disguise, sometimes as a delivery driver, sometimes as a doorman, and often as someone who has nothing at all. Lauren blinked. It sounded absurd. But this man, this billionaire, had clearly lived it. I do it for one reason, he continued. Because the true test of leadership isn't how someone performs in front of a boardroom. It's how they treat people when they think those people have nothing to offer them. He paused. People like me, or at least the man you thought I was this morning. Lauren swallowed hard. Mr. Sterling, Julian raised a hand to stop her. Before you speak, he said calmly, I think you should hear what my father recorded. He clicked a remote. A flat screen lit up on the far wall. Security footage from just that morning. It showed the front entrance of IronVale's building, the hustle of Monday foot traffic, the hot sun reflecting off the sidewalk. And then it zoomed in. Lauren, clutching her bag, snapping at the man on the mat, pouring red-hot sauce directly onto his hands. Her own voice played through the speakers. Maybe this will teach you to stop wasting everyone's time. Lauren looked away. The sound of her own cruelty echoed in her ears louder than any applause she had hoped to hear today. When the footage ended, there was silence. Julian leaned forward, steepling his fingers. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. IronVale is on the verge of expanding across 6 continents. We're not just building tech. We're building a brand, one that reflects our values, our vision, our humanity. He stared at her, eyes cold. You were one of 3 finalists to lead that brand. Lauren opened her mouth again this time, forcing words through cracked pride. I was under immense pressure, she said. The presentation, the commute, the deadlines, I didn't even think. That Henry interrupted gently is the point. He folded his hands. I'm 72 years old. I've been called trash, invisible, in the way, more times than I can count during these tests. But what you did today wasn't just cold, it was calculated. You poured pain into another human being's hands, and you didn't blink. Lauren's eyes welled with tears, not of sadness, but of raw exposure. I'm not like that, she whispered. Not really. Julian spoke again. Then when were you going to show us who you really are? She had no answer, because there was none. The room remained silent as Julian reached for a folder on the table. He opened it slowly, each page filled with notes, feedback, HR evaluations, performance scores. Everything Lauren had built was in that folder. You're smart, he said. Disciplined, consistent. Your numbers are strong, but we don't promote talent without integrity. And today, integrity failed. He closed the folder. By now, you're dismissed from the selection process, effective immediately. Lauren's chest tightened. But more than that, he added, You'll be placed on leave while we review whether your behavior today violated our company's code of ethics. Depending on that review, your employment status may change permanently. Her career, her future was hanging by a thread. She wanted to protest. She wanted to scream. But in her heart, she knew the thread had already snapped. Henry stood. One last thing, he said. There's a place called Hawthorne Center for Community Renewal. It's 3 blocks from your apartment. Lauren blinked. She hadn't told him where she lived. They take volunteers, he said simply. They feed the hungry, train the unemployed, and offer real-world empathy. They also teach something you seem to have skipped along the way, humility. Julian nodded. Whether or not you return to IronVale, he said, will depend on how you spend the next few months. Lauren stood slowly, legs shaky, pride crumbling. May I? She cleared her throat. May I speak to your father just once? Alone? Henry nodded. Julian stepped out. When the door closed, Lauren looked at him. Really looked, and for the first time, she saw him. Not the power, not the disguise. The man. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I don't know what came over me. Henry held her gaze. It's not about what came over you, he said softly. It's about what's always been inside you and whether you're willing to change it. 2 weeks after the incident, Lauren Brooks stood at the edge of her career and her identity. Her name had quietly disappeared from IronVale's email system. Her badge access had been deactivated. The HR rep had called it a pending review of conduct. But the message was clear: she was no longer welcome. No one said it directly, but word spread. People talked. Whispers grew teeth. Clients were reassigned. Her inbox dried up. Recruiters who once pursued her with 6-figure offers stopped returning messages. She applied to 20 jobs in 10 days. 0 interviews. Lauren Brooks, the rising star, the strategist, the woman everyone once called bulletproof, was suddenly radioactive. Her Midtown East apartment now felt like a glass cage. Her heels sat untouched in the corner. The hot sauce bottle from that day still lay in her kitchen drawer, unopened, untouched, unforgotten. And every night she saw his face, not Julian Sterling's, his father's. Those eyes, not angry, just aware, as if they'd always known who she really was. On a gray Thursday afternoon, Lauren found herself standing in front of a weathered brick building in the East Village Hawthorne Center for Community Renewal. It didn't look like much, just a single-story community hub wedged between a laundromat and an old synagogue. The windows were dusty, the paint was fading, but there was something gentle about it, something quiet. The sign taped to the door read, "We serve those the world has forgotten, and we remind them they're still seen." Lauren almost turned around 3 times. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the silence in her apartment. Maybe it was the memory of the man on the mat. Maybe it was the shame that hadn't stopped burning. She stepped inside. The woman at the front desk was older, maybe mid-60s, with kind but sharp eyes. Her name tag read Ms. Clara Uno Director. "You're here to volunteer?" Clara asked, not looking up from her clipboard. Lauren hesitated. I think I'm here to learn something." Clara finally looked at her, not judgmentally, not kindly either, just plainly. "We don't teach lessons here," she said. "We serve lunch. We sweep floors. We listen." Lauren nodded, uncertain. "You ever held someone's hand while they cried?" Clara asked. Lauren blinked. "I've led corporate teams. Not the same." And that was that. Clara handed her an apron and pointed to the back kitchen. The first day, Lauren served soup to 127 people. They came from shelters, from buses, from sidewalks. They were men in ragged coats and women with children, a former schoolteacher with cataracts, a construction worker with a limp, a retired vet with perfect manners and a broken wrist. And not one of them looked at her with contempt. They smiled. They said thank you. They treated her like someone human, more than she had treated them. By the second week, Lauren was staying past her shifts, organizing clothing drives, teaching basic Excel to single mothers, holding crying strangers in the hallway, while they whispered stories of eviction, sickness, survival. One night, she stayed to mop the floors alone. Clara came by quietly and watched her. "You ever think you'd end up here?" Clara asked. Lauren smiled faintly. "Honestly, no. I thought this world was beneath me." Clara nodded. That's funny. Most people here never thought someone like you would walk through our door. She paused. But you did, and that means something. She was leading. She organized donation campaigns, built partnerships with grocery chains, helped over 80 people prepare job resumes, many of whom later emailed her with photos from their first interviews. She got no applause, no titles. But for the first time in her life, Lauren felt seen not for her ambition, but for her presence. She hadn't spoken to anyone at IronVale since the meeting, until the envelope arrived. It came in the mail, cream-colored, embossed, IronVale Group letterhead. Inside a letter. Lauren Brooks, over the past few months, we've observed your work at Hawthorne Center through our community partners. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. We are creating a new role within IronVale Director of Social Impact and Inclusion. This department will lead company-wide initiatives that connect our resources to underserved communities. Given your transformation and ongoing service, we believe no one is better suited to lead this program than you. If you are willing, report to the 37th floor Monday at 9:00 a.m. Julian Sterling, CEO. At the bottom, a handwritten note in slightly shaky cursive kindness. Costs nothing. Welcome back if you're ready. Henry Sterling Lauren read the letter 5 times, and for the first time in months, she cried. Not from shame, but from hope. Monday morning, 8:58 a.m. Lauren Brooks stood outside the revolving doors of IronVale Group for the first time in half a year. Same glass lobby, same polished marble floors, same security guards' coffee carts and interns rushing in with double-shot espressos and AirPods. But everything felt different. Because this time, Lauren wasn't walking in to climb the ladder. She was walking in to build a new one for others. As she passed through the entrance, the security guard, a man named Daryl, she used to ignore, smiled and nodded. Good morning, Miss Brooks. Lauren smiled back. It's just Lauren now. And thank you. She pressed the button for the executive elevator. 37th floor. This time she didn't fix her makeup or check her reflection. She just stood there, quietly holding the offer letter in her hand, like a promise. The doors opened. Julian Sterling stood there waiting. He was dressed impeccably, as always. Steel gray suit, crisp pocket square. But today, his expression was different. There was no cold CEO veneer, no calculated posture. Just a faint, respectful nod. Good to see you again, he said simply. Likewise, they walked into a glass conference room where 3 other executives sat waiting, 2 women from the board and a man from operations. But the person who drew Lauren's eye was sitting at the head of the table, Henry Sterling, in a navy cardigan and simple button-up. He looked less like a billionaire today and more like the kind grandfather he might have been all along. He smiled gently. Lauren, he said warmly, you came. I wasn't sure I would, she replied honestly, but I think I'm supposed to be here. Julian gestured toward the empty chair. We'll be brief. You've already earned the role, but we want you to understand what this position means. He pulled up a presentation. The first slide read, Social Impact and Inclusion Division Launch Plan. We've allocated a $20 million fund, Julian explained. Your division will lead 4 areas: community partnerships, employee crisis support, homelessness, intervention, and ethical hiring practices. You'll report directly to me, Henry added, but you'll operate independently. We're trusting you to design the system. Lauren sat back stunned. That's a lot of trust. Julian nodded. You earned it. He clicked to the next slide. It was a photo grainy from a security camera. Lauren, 6 months ago, pouring hot sauce on Henry's hands. Her stomach twisted. Julian didn't flinch. We kept this image, he said, not to shame you, but to remember something important. He clicked again. The next photo, Lauren in a kitchen serving food to the homeless at Hawthorne Center. Then another standing beside an elderly man helping him fill out a job application. Then another speaking at a local food bank event, not as a guest, but as a volunteer. Redemption isn't just an idea, Henry said softly. It's action. Lauren felt her throat tighten. I don't deserve this role because I changed. I deserve it because I've seen what happens when people don't, Julian smiled. Exactly. She established partnerships with over 20 local nonprofits. IronVale began offering on-site job training to formerly incarcerated individuals. A fund was created for employees facing housing insecurity. Monthly empathy rounds were instituted where executives were required to spend 1 day per quarter working in shelters, kitchens, or schools. The media caught wind. Forbes ran a piece titled "The Redemption Architect: How One Fall from Grace Reshaped an Entire Company." But Lauren didn't care about headlines anymore. She cared about people, about systems, about change that lasted longer than applause. One morning, nearly a year after her promotion, Lauren sat in the IronVale lobby with a group of first-time interns, many of them from Hawthorne Center. She wore a simple blazer, no designer bag, no dramatic heels. She was listening to a young woman named Angie talk about her first ever paycheck when she noticed a familiar figure outside. Old coat, scuffed boots, sitting on a mat, same cardboard sign. Henry Sterling was back, doing what he had always done, observing. She watched as a new junior manager approached him. The man didn't ignore him. He crouched. He spoke to him. He handed him a granola bar, nodded respectfully, and walked into the building. Lauren smiled. The culture was shifting, and it was working. That night, Lauren walked back to her apartment, the same one she nearly lost 6 months ago. Her phone buzzed. A message from Clara at the community center, 12 job placements this week. Your resume classes made the difference. Lauren replied, I only held the door. They walked through it. She looked out at the city skyline, its lights, its noise, its indifference, and whispered to herself, kindness costs nothing, but it gives back everything. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the smallest acts of cruelty leave the biggest lessons. And sometimes redemption begins the moment we learn to look past appearances and finally see the human being behind the silence.